Hello and welcome to Coach Picks, the only MMA gambling show where we have to have the Fire Squad on call because my man Ian Parker has been absolutely on fire lately. Ian, how are you doing, my friend?
Long night of PFL fights, pretty exciting. Now on to Bellator in the UFC. Let's do it.
Well, and look how dedicated Ian Parker is. Last night he was on call on the ESPN broadcast. Great job, Ian. Everyone make sure to be tuning into PFL and go look at their social channels. But he turns around this morning to give you guys some UFC picks. I mean, who does it better? Nobody. Rhetorical question. So first off, in this UFC Vegas 26 card, formerly Sandhagen versus Dillashaw, now it's going to be Rodriguez versus Waterson. But we're going to start at the beginning of the card at welterweight. Christian Aguilera plus 135 versus Carlston Harris minus 167. Ian, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I like Carlston Harris here. I just think that overall he's got a better game. I think he's a smarter fighter here. As long as he doesn't rush in and get carried away, sometimes he tends to do that. He should be good to go. I'm surprised the odds are actually this low. I thought they'd be a little bit higher, so I do see the value in taking him here.
We'll love that. We're always looking for the value here. You got to be looking at those numbers, guys. Listen to the information. Take what you want. Go make the plays by yourself. Next on the card at middleweight, Junyoung Park plus 115 versus Tafon Njoukwi minus 143. I think I nailed that, Ian.
I think you did. I think that was pretty good. I actually like the underdog here in Park. So in his last fight, we saw him land, a million strikes, the way he took the fight to the ground. I think his opponent here is he's a wild athlete. He's a very good athlete, his striking. However, I just think that this is one of these fights where someone's getting a little too much hype too soon. And if he doesn't land on Park early, we know Park can take the fight to the ground. And then once he does, we know his control is good. We know his ground game is solid and he's a smart fighter. So I like the underdog in this play.
And we see a lot early on in these UFC cards where you're getting a lot more value on earlier fights because those fights are a lot more up in the air, as Ian said. That's where matchmakers are really trying to figure out where these guys sit in their divisions. So I love that play there by Ian. Next at flyweight, Ryan Benoit minus 137 versus Zaruk Adeshev plus 110. Ian, the floor is yours.
Adeshev's a really good kickboxer, although he's had some really bad luck in that fight against Tyson Nam. We saw him get knocked out. In this fight, Benoit went against Tim Elliott, who has been around forever, and he's kind of rebirthed his career with James Krause. I think Benoit gets it done here as long as he doesn't get into a slugfest. His speed will be the advantage, excuse me, and he's got a better ground game. If he can implement that and not get into just a pure kickboxing fight, I think his combinations get it done, so I do like Benoit here.
Ryan Benoit, the pick to click there for Ian Parker. Next at featherweight, Ludovic Klein, minus 250 versus Michael Trizano, plus 195. Ian, I know off camera, we've had a couple conversations about this fight. Let the world know.
Yeah, I like Ludovic Klein here. I think he's someone to keep an eye on. I think he's extremely well-rounded. I think he's a very smart fighter. I just don't think a lot of people know about him. I think those odds should even be maybe closer to minus 325. I think it's really because he's just unknown. And sometimes with MMA, this is where there's an advantage here. So normally I wouldn't say bet someone that high, but I don't mind that minus 250 number, believe it or not. However, if you want to play it safe, again, put him in a parlay. He should be a higher favorite.
Well, that's a very good point, Ian, because Mike Trizano, fans will know, Ultimate Fighter winner. Maybe the bookmaker has a little more insight into him because he's a well-known name. I think it's a very good observation. Next at middleweight, Phil Hawes plus 110 versus Kyle Daukaus minus 137. Ian, Kyle Daukaus came on the scene quite recently, and he's really made a tear in the division. Where do you see this fight going for him?
Yeah, I don't really get it, to be honest with you. He lost to Brendan Allen in that fight, and then he came back and he won, but it wasn't like listen, we know what we're getting out of Daukaus, right? Scrappy guy, good ground game. However, he's fighting a guy in Phil Hawes who also a wrestler, not the best cardio, but his striking, this guy carries power we don't see very often, right? So these are one of those situations you have to say to yourself, do we believe Hawes can get it done or be able to keep the fight standing throughout the 3 rounds? That last fight showed me that he can, and I haven't seen enough from Daukaus to prove to me that his striking is good enough to close a distance and get the fight to the ground. So I think Hawes in the underdog spot is a very nice play here.
Well, and I think physically their bodies kind of agree with you, Ian. I don't really feel like Kyle Daukaus is a true middleweight. I think he's kind of a middleweight by convenience. Right. So I think Hawes is a middleweight. He cuts down to 185, whereas I think Daukaus just walks in at 185. So I think that's a very good observation on your point. But speaking of weights, we're going to move into the heavyweight division. Big Ben Rothwell minus 118 versus Felipe Lins minus 106. Ian, the big boys are entering the small cage here in the UFC Apex Center. Where do you see this fight going down?
I think this plays a huge favor for Ben Rothwell. As we've seen his last couple of fights, he's been throwing a tremendous amount of strikes and output, which is quite surprising for a heavyweight. However, in the fight against Tibura, that kind of went against him because he got tired and Marcin Tybura was able to take him down, which you don't see often with Rothwell. However, in this fight with Linz is such a hesitant striker. He doesn't utilize his takedowns. He's very predictable. I think if Rothwell paces himself correctly and sets up the takedowns, he's also a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's very good on the ground, and he's a mammoth of a man. He should be able to win this fight. I'm surprised the odds are as close. I kind of feel like I'm being redundant here, but I really mean it. I valued him at minus 185 in this fight. So I love Ben Rothwell here.
Well, and don't crown him before he gets the W, but look good for the King of Kenosha there, minus 118 going into this weekend. Coming into the main card where you can find it on ESPN, moving off of the ESPN Plus card, it is UFC Vegas 26 going down in Las Vegas at the UFC Apex Center. These are all leans. This is all information that we want you guys to use with your betting habits. But in order to get Ian's premium plays, you need to go to Coach Picks and sign up there for the best plays in MMA. And we're not just saying it at this point. I mean, it's proven, the record's there. Guys, if you're not subscribing to Ian's plays and even our free newsletter, I don't really know what you're doing. So moving here onto the main card with Ian Parker, the women's strawweight division has been on fire lately. Amanda Ribas comes into this fight at a minus 190 clip versus Angela Hill plus 150. Angela Hill, friend of the program, friend of both of us here. I think this is a very tough matchup for her. Ian, what do you think this fight is going to happen for UFC Vegas 26?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think we're actually getting tremendous value on Amanda Ribas. I think the books are taking that loss to Rodriguez a little too much. She was winning that fight. She was actually winning in the striking. She got the fight to the ground. She got tagged one time. And as we've seen in MMA, when you wear 4-ounce gloves, doesn't matter what weight, you get hit on the chin, you can go down. She's got tremendous attitude. Her positivity shines. I think with Angela Hill, we know what we're getting. We're getting someone who's working on takedown defense. We're getting a striker who's got good cardio. But the minute this fight hits the floor, Angela Hill is going to be like a fish out of water. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. You talk about Amanda Ribas, who's a black belt in judo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I don't look at one fight as a major setback because to me, this is a very smart fight for her to take where I believe her reach, her speed in striking, although Angela Hill might be the better striker, and I'll do this because of how long she's been doing it, but I still think Ribas is a star in the making. I think she learns from that mistake with her team, and she gets the fight to the floor where she knows she has the advantage. So I do like Ribas here.
Well, and I think coming off her last performance, it's a little easier to say that given the fact that if Ribas was more comfortable in there, maybe a little more confident, she would sit there and strike with Angela Hill, where I think we can both agree Angela Hill has a much better shot at winning that fight. But coming off of that last fight, Amanda Ribas probably is going to play it a little more safe. And as you said, better takedowns, better ground ability. Angela Hill, not really known for much BJJ skills off of her back. I really love that play, Ian. I think Ribas at minus 190 is a great straight up play myself, but you're going to have to subscribe for Ian's picks in order to get the skinny there. At lightweight, Carlos Diego Ferreira plus 145 versus Gregor Gillespie minus 182. Ian, I am so hyped for this fight. I love Gregor the Gift. Where do you see this fight playing out?
This one's a tough one here. I don't look at Gregor's head kick knockout loss as a major setback. I'm trying to really look at with Diego Ferreira here, in his fight against Beneil Dariush, the striking looked good, but what we saw was Dariush was able to get the takedowns, I think a lot easier than we all expected, right? Gregor is a much better wrestler than Beneil Dariush. However, Dariush is probably a better jiu-jitsu practitioner. The only difference I also see here is Gregor Gillespie's constant pace, his constant speed. And I don't think Ferreira possesses that type of knockout power that Kevin Lee does. I just don't see him as that type of fighter. He's more of a volume guy, right? And Gregor is going to be way more mindful of that. I think he's going to be more protective when he rushes in. So I think Gillespie bounces back in a big way. And I think this is a tough fight for him to come back to. That wrestling and speed and pace, though, I believe is going to be too much. So I'm going to go with Gregor Gillespie here.
Well, and I can't help to remember back to some of Ferreira's old performances in the octagon. I'm not going to say he has a tendency to give up, but with someone like Gregor Gillespie, when you're getting absolutely matted for 3 rounds, it's easy to sit there in the last 2 minutes and kind of just be like, what am I doing? So it's kind of how I see it.
He's a tough guy to put away, even when he, gives up per se. I just think that Gregor's one of those guys that has a style that he will throw, getting kicked in the head and knocked out. You really can't go back and analyze that as much. You could just learn, hey, hands up in that situation. Maybe it was just a split-second decision, but I just don't think Ferreira possesses that same type of kick. And I just think Gillespie's a smart guy and he learns from it and gets it done.
Well, and an incredible wrestling pedigree there from Gillespie, but
Sure.
I don't think we're going to see much wrestling in this next fight at heavyweight. Marcos Rogerio de Lima, minus 190 versus Maurice, the Crochet Boss Green, plus 150. I personally love the Crochet Boss. He's a New England cartel guy myself, but Ian, this is a crazy heavyweight matchup. How do you see it playing out?
I mean, no disrespect to our friends with the cartel, and but I don't think that Mo Green has it. I got to be honest. I think the Contender Series, he had a good fight, but since he's been in the UFC, and then Volante win was ridiculous. What have we seen? We've seen a guy who doesn't throw a lot of shots. His cardio's not there, and he doesn't set anything up to use the power. What we've seen in Lima, he's going to come forward and he's going to take your head off. And if he goes to the ground, he has the ability to submit you. In the fight against my guy, I can't even forgot the Russian guy's name that he fought recently. He was giving him fits. Talk about a guy that he was supposed to get bodied quickly. He was giving him fits. He tagged him. I just think that Mo Green's hesitancy, he doesn't throw any volume. I think De Lima here is a very good play. And I'm even going to go as far as say he probably knocks out Maurice Green in the first round.
Wow. Well, you got to love that, guys. When Ian's out here giving plus money plays like that, plus money leans, I should say, you got to take note of it.
It's a lean because I don't love props, but I will say that if any of those fights to look into that one, pay attention to that. Yeah.
Well, and it's heavyweight MMA. Anything can happen. Yeah, so I don't think you're too far off there. Now, this card just keeps getting better and better, and as it should as it goes to the top. But some sneaky good matchups here, and one that I thought would be elevated to the main event as opposed to Rodriguez versus Waterson. But Neil Magny plus 160 versus Jeff Neal minus 200. Ian, that's my main event. How do you see it going?
Excuse me. So this is an interesting fight. Magny usually doesn't lose 2 in a row. He's a cardio guy. And with Jeff Neal, it's hard to really see where he's at in his career. He was fighting that kidney disease, came back, won 5 rounds, got dominated by Wonder Boy. So I don't really know which Neal we see. And with Neil Magny, Michael Chiesa out-grappled him, and he just wasn't making smart decisions. Not the same Magny we usually see. We don't see him rushing into a clinch if he's getting out-clinched. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense. I think the play in this fight is over 2.5 rounds. Both guys very hard to put away. So I like that. If you want to play the underdog here, Neil Magny, I also like that, but for me, the stronger play would be over 2.5 rounds. Both guys just don't seem to get finished. I think Jeff Neal does possess the power, but we've seen Magny take 100 shots from Hector Lombard and somehow bounce back. So, for me, the styles here, I think both guys are going to kind of play it safe to try to get the win. So I'm going to go with over 2.5 here.
Well, and it's an interesting analysis because I spoke with our mutual friend Jason Anik yesterday, and we both agreed that it is going to be that kind of it's hard to explain the dynamics going on in this fight because Neil Magny has always been a great distance fighter. He has a lot of skills when it comes to elbows and knees, but in order to throw elbows and knees, you need to be in boxing range. Do you want to be in boxing range with a guy like Jeff Neal? His shoulders are like 4 feet across. That's 20% of the octagon in the 25-footer. So I think there's going to be a lot of angular play there and, high level MMA going down in this matchup, but I love your analysis there. Sticking in the welterweight division, Donald Cowboy Cerrone minus 177 versus Alex Morono plus 145. Donald Cerrone stays on this card after all of the drama going on with Diego Sanchez. Love to see it. This is his first fight this year. And, we really haven't seen Cerrone that much. He's kind of weighing down his frequency as his career gets older. Do you see this being a good matchup for him against Morono?
I do. I think this is somebody in Morono that we know what we're going to get. He's going to come firing away really quickly. At the same time, we saw how he lost to Pettis. So there is a path to victory here. Morono's a tough guy. Not a big name, but he is a tough guy. I think for Cerrone, all this time off will be good for his energy, his healing process. No rush. I think the pressure is kind of off him a little bit here, but he seems to mentally really be focused on this fight. I think if he really chooses his shots and utilizes his ground game to give himself a little bit of a breather, I do see him winning this fight. And it's not often you get Cowboy at those type of odds against a guy who's a non-ranked fighter. So I do like Cowboy here.
Well, and something Cowboy said in his interviews leading up to this was usually it's him that's taking the short notice fight. He's coming in on 2 weeks notice. Now it's the other side. Cowboy has the full camp. Cowboy's ready to fight. I think that's going to be absolute fireworks, but I do agree with your analysis there. And we love a good Cowboy win. I'd love to see him get back on the horse on a 4-fight losing streak.
Sure.
The main event in this main card coming up on UFC Vegas 26 is going to be on ESPN. You're looking at Marina Rodriguez minus 225 versus Michelle Waterson plus 180. Absolutely fire matchup here going on in the UFC. Ian, where do you see this fight going? How do you see it playing out? And are there any props that you're kind of leaning on there with this 5-rounder main eventing this weekend on Saturday?
I mean, if you're going to, this is a tough one, man. Rodriguez, I think, just got into Vegas today, supposedly. But Waterson's also taking this on short notice. Waterson going up to 125 concerns me, though, because she's already small for 115. She was an atom weight in Invicta. And what we saw Rodriguez in her last fight against Amanda Ribas, very few people possess that knockout power with the striking. If she can keep this fight standing, because Waterson will have the ground game advantage, but she's not going to have the strength. And Rodriguez is already big for the weight class. And the fact that she doesn't have to cut, I think it's going to be a tough one for Michelle Waterson. So I like Rodriguez here.
So you said Michelle has the better ground game, but does that take place on her back? If Rodriguez has the advantage grappling on the top, does that advantage still play?
No, it doesn't here, because here's the thing with jiu-jitsu, right? Yes, Brazilian jiu-jitsu does help someone who is smaller off their back, right? However, if someone knows how to take the right angles, use their power the right way, put their knees in the right position, their hips, it takes away from that. So I don't think Waterson's arm bars, if that's what you're insinuating, is going to be too sneaky. I don't think Rodriguez hasn't seen that. With Ribas off her back, Rodriguez was able to punch her way out of it, So I just think that she's going to be too big, too strong for Waterson. I don't think the fight's going to even make it to the ground. I don't think Waterson's going to be able to do a hip toss on her. Those have been very telegraphed her last few fights. She hasn't had a ton of success with that. In the Angela Hill fight, you saw it coming from a mile away. She landed 1 out of 12. I just think Rodriguez's striking is going to be too much. As long as her cardio is there, the volume, those push kicks, I don't think Waterson's side kick is going to really be that much of a factor in this fight, because the rage is going to be such a difference. So like I said, I think Rodriguez gets this done. How? I don't know, because I really don't know where everyone's at cardio-wise and how long they've been training. This could go the full 5 rounds, though, because the women usually have low finishing rates. So I'm still going to go with Rodriguez here.
Yeah, so that over 4.5 rounds prop is minus 230. So, if you can snag in some great plays otherwhere to maybe bring that down, I think that is a great play. But yes, Ian, as I was referring to, I see this playing out with Waterson on her back, kind of accepting guard there in the later rounds. And so I do tend to agree with your analysis there.
Yeah.
But that's it, guys. No recap here. You're going to have to just rewind it to go figure it out. Get the best plays, get the best information. My man Ian Parker's giving it to you all for free. I mean, slide into those Twitter DMs and start tipping the man for all this free information. Am I right?
Don't slide into DMs. Just tweet. No DMs, please.
No DMs for Ian Parker.
All you got to do is sign up at Combat Coach. You don't even need to go through all that trouble. If they sign up at Combat Coach, you'll get my stuff and right to the pay window.
Well, I don't even need to give a promo after that. For Cody Merrow and Ian Parker, this is Combat Coach, and we're out.